I don't know how somehow the first podcast that I've ever done, we somehow started talking about. So do you remember your first listing and what it was like? Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of real estate agents don't realize that.
Right.
I'm sure that there have been some things that you wish you could have done differently or a mistake that you made.
I think sometimes if you remove the ceiling, you have to remove the floor of your income as well. Like, let's just go. I think one of the best things that agents can do is
I think it's the best.
Yeah.
Like, I just love it. There you
Outside,
go.
I was like, I'm in the right place, man. This is it.
On this episode of The Key, we are joined by Jason Jones. Jason is a touring musician turned real estate agent. He's a father, a husband, a worship leader, and just an overall great guy. We'll hear about his story, starting real estate, moving from Kansas to Atlanta, and managing his first listing remote. You won't want to miss that one. I hope that you enjoy listening to this podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the like button below if you liked it. And let's get on with the show. Jason.
What's up, man?
Welcome to The Key.
Oh, man, I'm excited to be here.
So tell me, why did you get into real estate?
Well, man, it actually starts before real estate. I was in sales. I was actually a touring musician first. So I moved to Kansas City. I was on tour with an artist that's based out of Kansas City. I was singing. I was teaching voice lessons. I was doing gigs. My wife now was my girlfriend then, and she moved out to Kansas City to live with another friend. She said it was for school, but we all know why she moved out. You know what I'm saying?
We all know.
We all know why she moved out there. And I realized I wanted to marry her. And then I also realized that you don't make any money teaching voice lessons and doing gigs. So I was like, I got to do
There's
something.
some voice teachers out there that are going to disagree.
You're right. And they're amazing. I'm not as good as they are. So I was like, I'm not going to do anything. So I was like, what can I do? I never finished college. I dropped out to go tour. And I was like, what can I do to make money, to provide, to marry this girl, to lock her down so she doesn't run off with someone else? I was like, all right, well, I got to get into sales. I sold insurance over the phone. It was Medicare supplement insurance. So if you know anything about that, it's people who are 65 and older. Cold calling all day, every day. And it was good. I did it for 2 years. I made decent money. But I was working like a dog. And every month it started over at zero. So I was selling these policies, and every month I made like $15 a policy, $30 a policy. So it was a grind. And I was doing okay. And I had this couple from my church who were, and still are, very successful real estate agents in Kansas City. And they invited me over. I guess they saw something in me. I'm very grateful. And I was sitting down with the husband, and his name's Bill. And he was asking me about myself. And I was, early 20s. And he was like, how much money do you make? And I thought I was like hot stuff. I was like, I made like just under $100,000. And I told him, I was like, I made, like 95. And he was like, that's cute. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Wow.
What?
Wow, he hit you with it.
And he was like, I remember the first time I made that in a month. And I was like, oh.
Excuse me?
I was like, say it again?
Yeah.
And I was like, I wanted to find something where I could continue to help people, because that's ultimately what sales is, right? Mm-hmm. It's helping somebody make a decision.
Yeah.
But something where I had a little more control over my time, freedom and flexibility, which is what every real estate agent says.
Yeah.
But something where there's less of a ceiling on my income. And they agreed to take me on and kind of mentor me a little bit, and I've never looked back since. I love it.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Is instead of just diving in by yourself and trying to figure it out, is having somebody who can take you kind of under their wing a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And that way you can avoid all the little mistakes that they had to go through.
Yes. Yes.
You learn from their mistakes.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. So do you remember your first listing and what it was like?
Yeah. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
So I actually, I was in Kansas City as an agent for 2 years before I moved back here. I had just started kind of hitting the ground running. I had a lot of buyers. I was with their team, their brokerage. It was a small, just a husband and wife team and a transaction coordinator, and then me, basically. And I handled all their buyers, and then my sphere was all buyers because I was young, still am young, but was young. I actually didn't get my first listing until I moved back to Atlanta. I moved here and I had some friends in Kansas City that still wanted to use me. And I had my Kansas license. And I was like, I'm going to try to take my first listing. And I still had my license with, I had hung it with Compass when I moved back.
Yeah.
Compass was in Kansas City at the time. And so I was like, I'm going to try to do it. And Compass let me do it. And it was terrifying because I wasn't there. So I had to delegate and outsource everything that happened.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, it was wild. But it was an incredible experience because I think one of the best things that agents can do is remember that they're business owners. Remember that they have to build systems. Remember that they have to delegate. Remember that they can't be the end-all, be-all. And I had to do it. I was forced into it, and I think it has served all of my clients since then, that I'm not the one that goes to put a sign in the yard. I'm not the one that goes to put a lockbox on the door. I'm not the one that takes pictures. I always hire that out to professionals that are much better than I am.
Wow. I think that's really important to remember that as a real estate agent, you are a business owner.
Absolutely.
You own your brand.
Absolutely.
Right? That's your business. You as an agent, your brand.
Yeah.
That's something that we focus on a lot at Visually Sold is helping with that whole thing, with the brand.
Right.
Because I think a lot of real estate agents don't realize that.
Right.
And they think that they're just kind of a service provider.
Right.
Right?
Right. Like a waiter.
Right. But they're a business. It's
Absolutely.
You have systems, exactly like what you said. You have to outsource certain things. You have systems that you have to lock down. I think that's super important.
Absolutely.
So what has it been like with Compass? Tell me a little bit about Compass, because I know they're, when I think about Compass, I kind of think of like the Apple of real estate. Is that kind of accurate?
I think that's a great comparison.
So tell me a little bit about working with them.
Yeah, so I want to back up a little bit to when I was in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So I was with this husband and wife team, brokerage. He was the broker, and they were still very much producing active real estate agents. And they were incredible. They were incredible mentors, but they were just a smaller operation. And at the time, Compass was not in Kansas City. I had found Compass through social media. I had followed a guy on Instagram that was out in Seattle, actually, and Compass was doing some cool things out there. And then I started following them. Yeah. When I knew I was going to move back home, because I grew up in Atlanta, when I knew I was going to move back home, I was trying to figure out where I would hang my license. And Compass has been here. And I saw them, and I was like, man, this is where someone like me who's young, who wants to be kind of in the forefront of the next generation of real estate, this is where I need to be. And I reached out to Compass myself, and I was like, guys, like, I've got to be here, because what they're doing is they are, I would call them the anti-Zillow, right? So when I say that, I mean that Zillow's whole premise is removing the agent from the process. They want it to be straight to consumer. And in theory, that's great. My hesitation as a professional, obviously, is that I don't want to lose my job. But the other part of it is it's not an easy process. I think it's something that having an expert help you in is well worth it. With that being said, Compass's whole premise is empowering the agent. So it's still about technology. It's still about moving the puck forward in the sense that real estate is an industry that I think has been living in the past for a long time.
Yeah.
But empowering the agent. So using technology to empower the agent to help the consumer in a much better and more efficient way. And I can align with that mission. Robert Refkin, the founder and CEO of Compass, his mom is an agent with Compass. So his
so
goals...
He believes in it so much that...
100%. Yeah. 100%. And that spoke a lot to me. When I learned that, I was like, okay, this is something that I can align my brand with.
Yeah.
And then Compass is also, they're a technology brand, but a luxury brand. So someone like me who's in my early 30s, I don't have a lot of friends that are doing luxury deals. Eventually, maybe I will, but getting aligned with a brand that is also luxury has helped me sell some houses that maybe I wouldn't have gotten in the door otherwise.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. I remember watching like an hour-long presentation with their founder, and I was like, man, this guy is polished.
He's
like,
legit.
He is. And I did realize that they were very agent focused.
Yeah.
And it's like, they are a technology company.
Right.
Right. kind of like Zillow.
Right.
But like what you're saying is like agents are the blood, like they're the lifeblood of
absolutely. They're
of
at
real
the
estate.
center.
And it's like, I wouldn't try to do all of my legal stuff without hiring a lawyer.
Right.
Right. Like you need, it's.
What do they say about
I mean?
a lawyer that represents himself as he has a fool as a client?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. I didn't say it.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Wow. You got your first listing when you came back to Atlanta, but it was in Kansas.
It was in Kansas. Yeah.
And so how did it go? Did you,
it went incredible.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Happy
had,
ending.
it was in the heat of that super hot market.
Yeah.
It was started 2021. We ended up having like 100 showings, and I think we got like 30 offers or something like that. It was
Wow.
a great deal.
Yeah.
Great deal for my friends, and great experience for me because it was jumping into the deep end of having to manage all of that, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you've been doing real estate for, is it 5 years?
I'm coming up on 5 years this month.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I know it's been 5 years, but in the 5 years, I'm sure that there have been some things that you wish you could have done differently, or a mistake that you made.
Absolutely.
That now you realize maybe it was tough at the time, but now you're like, I'm kind of glad that happened because I learned something.
Absolutely.
What was that for you? All right, it's 2023, and if you're not using professional listing photos for your listings, it's time to get started. Visually Sold is here to do exactly that. All of our photographers are trained the same way. They all use the same exact equipment, and you can book a shoot on our website in under 2 minutes. You can go to vs.photos. Yes, that's our actual URL. That's the whole thing. There's no .com. vs.photos to book your shoot today. It takes 2 minutes. Go check it out if you haven't already, and let's get back to the show. Did you have anything like that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, when I started, I was working another sales job. I had gotten my real estate license at the suggestion of that broker in Kansas City, and I knew that I wanted to do it. And I listened to a ton of podcasts, audiobooks, real big on education. And there's really two schools of thought. When you start real estate, there's the school of thought that says you need to keep a day job until you can support yourself and be a part-time agent. Then there's the school of thought that says you can't be a successful part-time agent, you need to jump into it full-time. And I am very much an action-oriented person. So that's what I did. We had just had our son, his name is Cohen. He's 4.5 now. And he was born in January of 2019? Yeah, 2019.
Don't get it wrong.
There it is.
Don't
I'm like,
wrong.
My wife's going to watch this. 2019, and I had just got my license like the end of 2018, right? And after I had taken my paternity leave, it was like 2 weeks from my job. I was like, after I take paternity leave and I get back, I'm going to quit, which is terrible. But it is what it is, right? I had taken my paternity leave. I go back to my job, and I'm like, this isn't doing it for me. I know I want to do real estate. I think sometimes if you remove the ceiling, you have to remove the floor of your income as well. Like, let's just go. And then I didn't sell a house for 6 months. And I had heard people say it could take 6 months to get rolling. And in my head, I was like, oh, I can do it faster. I can do it faster. And some people do, and I didn't. It took me 6 months to close my first transaction. And in that 6 months, my wife was working as an admin assistant for the youth group at our church. So that was our only income. And it was really hard. We had a newborn at home. We had our power shut off. We had people giving us money for food. It was an incredibly humbling season. And if I could go back and do it different, I think that maybe I would have leaned more on that income that I had and tried to push outside of the 9 to 5 hours. But even as I say that, I'm like, that I think my character was forged during that first 6 months. So I don't want to say it was a mistake. I know that it happens for a reason. I learned a lot from it. But that was definitely, that was the hardest season of my real estate career for sure. And I think, when I speak to people who are interested about getting into the real estate industry now and they ask me, What should they do? I think the answer is it's got to be situation specific. In that situation with a newborn and a wife who was making $20-something thousand, maybe I should have stayed at my job a little longer. But I do think that the more hours, the more reps that you put into something, the better that you're going to get faster. The 10,000 hour rule, obviously, you've got to get those hours somehow, and doing it full time is the way to do it the quickest.
So this is going to be a little bit selfish of me to ask.
Yeah.
But why to you is visual marketing so important?
Oh, man. Okay, so there's a saying that's kind of rolling around the industry right now that the first showing is actually online. The second showing is when the buyer gets to the house. In this day and age, think about how people search for homes now, right? We mentioned Zillow earlier. They changed the game, and honestly, in a good way. Like, I have nothing against Zillow. They're giving the information to the consumer, and that's super important. But now, whereas it used to be that agents had, listing books in the back of their car, and they had all of the information, the consumer has it, and they're clicking around online looking for houses.
Yeah.
The first thing they see is going to be the pictures of the home. And if the pictures aren't good, they're going to scroll right on by.
I do it myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unconsciously, I do it myself.
I do it when I'm looking for homes for buyers.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the first impression they have of the home is the photos.
Yeah.
If the visual marketing is not good, you're not getting as many bodies in the home. You're not getting as many eyeballs physically in the property, which is going to result in less offers. It's going to result in lower purchase prices.
Yeah.
It's antithetical to what the seller is trying to do.
It's an attention game.
Absolutely.
Everything is an attention game right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, and love them or hate them, like you said, Zillow, that's what they're doing. They're bringing attention to listings. They're bringing more attention to listings.
Right.
If without things like Zillow and platforms like Zillow, some listings just wouldn't get seen.
Right.
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 I mean, that people used to go drive around and look at, honey, let's go look for some houses for sale. There's some down the road. Real estate agent said that there's some for sale. Let's go drive around and look at them. Nobody does that anymore.
Right. Or even offices. You used to drive into your local real estate office and ask what they've got, and then the agent would take you around. But now what you do is you sit at your kitchen table with a cup of coffee and you say, I'm going to search in this range.
Right.
And that's
you know what that does? That saves everybody time.
Absolutely.
That saves the agent time. That sells the seller's time. It saves the buyer's time.
Right. But that's why that first impression is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you can't capture attention on that first impression, they're just going to scroll right to the next house.
Totally. And like what you were saying for luxury listings.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, oftentimes luxury buyers are from out of state.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
They're going to need to see the house online.
Absolutely.
What for you is the most fulfilling part of real estate?
Oh, man. That's a great question. I can tell you that, and this kind of stems back from that first sales job that I had. It was selling insurance. And it was a company in Kansas City. It was a very startup feel. I kind of got there and like right at the beginning of their expansion into a much larger company now. At the time, there were like 70 of us. So not small, but not huge. They had kind of just gotten out of that startup phase to the point, and the reason I'm saying this is that my final interview was with the COO of the company, which probably doesn't happen now, I would imagine. But at the time, he was the most successful person I had ever been in a room with. And he was asking me some really good questions. And at the end of the interview, he said, "What is sales?" And I said, the textbook answer, it's like helping somebody with a transaction between a buyer and a seller. And he was like, no. He said, "What is it?" And I actually mentioned this earlier in the podcast. He said, sales is helping somebody make a decision.
Yeah.
And I love that answer because at my heart, I want to help people. And the reason I love that in the context of real estate is that people need to have a place to live. Yeah. It's a fundamental human need, shelter.
Yeah.
And the American dream is, a house with a white picket fence. And I know for my wife and I, we worked so hard to buy our first house. So hard to buy our first house. And it's an incredibly stressful process. They say, I don't know who they is, but they say...
Who is they?
Yeah, I don't know who they is.
Golden question.
They say that short of the death of a loved one or a divorce, that the buying or selling of a personal home is the third most stressful experience that anybody will ever go through.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it has to be that way. But if you're doing it on your own, or if you've got an agent that's not very good or not very caring, or they just don't have enough time to walk you through the process, that's when that stress comes in. I think the unknown is the most stressful part about it.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I get to help people through that process and hopefully make it as stress-free as it can possibly be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think real estate as an asset class is incredible. There's a stat out there, and again, I wish I knew who to contribute it to so I could give credit, but most people, their personal home is the largest asset they'll ever own, right? And I know you've got the different schools of thought of your home's not an asset, it's a liability, and regardless, we're going to make a ton of money when we sell our house. If it puts money in my pocket, I consider it an asset.
Sure.
A lot of people aren't going to ever have more than they'll have when they sell their house. A lot of people, that's their retirement plan.
Yeah.
So if I can help them make wise decisions on the front end, and if I can help them maximize their profit on the back end, then I'm really doing people more service than they may get at any other time in their life. And I love that I get to help people. And I love that I get to make an impact, because ultimately that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the stress part of that is that's something that we tell our photographers all the time, and that, we tell our clients as well, is what you just said. This is one of the most stressful times of people's lives when they're buying or selling a property.
Yeah.
And in our case, we're helping people sell in one way or another, right? With visual marketing. So not as much as you would help them sell necessarily, but and that's one big thing for us. It's like, guys, when you're at the shoot, when you're there, this is just know they're under a ton of stress, the homeowners, Not we don't meet them all the time, right? Sometimes it's vacant.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're having the time of their lives selling their house. You know what I mean? You never know. But usually it's a stressful time. So it's like, what can we do? Because we're a crucial piece of the puzzle there.
Oh, yeah.
We're a crucial piece of that process. So what can we do to make our part of it as stressless as possible?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we made a word there, but I like it.
I don't even know. Stressless. I don't know if that's a word.
It's good.
It is now.
It is now.
So I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I think people don't have that mindset all the time. A lot of the time they're going into the situation thinking about what's in it for them. What can they get out of it?
Right.
Instead of doing it with a service heart.
Right.
And I think that's super important.
Right. And I think with being a real estate agent, a lot of people don't remember, one, that it is a sales job, right? But if sales is helping people make a decision, that you're coming at it from a place of service. But two, when you serve people first, that's how you get those referrals. That's how you get those clients that are lifelong clients.
Yep.
And you can throw as much money as you want into any kind of marketing channel, but ultimately you're still reaching out to people. You're still trying to help them, trying to serve them, and if you do a good job, they'll come back again.
Yeah.
And if you approach every single transaction as how can I serve this person best, 100% your business will grow, because that's how you keep client relationships forever.
Absolutely. I would say 80% of our clients come from referrals.
Absolutely. And it should be that way.
Yeah.
It should be that way.
Yeah.
And that's most of my business, if not all of my business, is through Sphere and referral.
Yeah.
And I want to work with the people that I want to work with.
Yeah.
And that's the best way I know to do it.
And if you do something that's so good, people will want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
They'll want to share it.
Absolutely.
Right? Think about, one of the best examples for me, I have two examples of this actually. One is Tesla, right? $0 on advertising.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one car that's selling in the world is the Model Y.
Yeah.
$0 on advertising.
Yeah.
Because people just share the word about it.
Yeah.
The other one, I don't know if you've heard of them, is Aesop.
Okay.
They're like a skincare soap company.
Wow.
They're $multi-hundred million a year gross revenue business based out of Australia. They just sold to L'Oreal for, I think, $2 billion or something like that. It could be more than that. $0 on advertising.
Yeah.
But they're like a high-end luxury kind of thing. So it's like if you know, you know.
Yeah.
But it's so good that people want to share that with other people.
Absolutely.
Right? Because again, people want to help other people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if
you're a great example of that too, though, because when we did that big listing that I had last year, you were like, "Hey, dude, you need to get a Tesla." And I was like, "Tell me about it." And you did.
People hate it. People hate it. Like even some of my family members are like, "Stop! You should be paid. You're a Tesla sales guy." I'm like, I think it's the best.
Yeah.
Like I just love it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you build something that good, people will want to do that. They'll become evangelists.
Absolutely.
That's part of the lead cycle.
Yeah. That's where I knew to park today, is because I parked next to a Tesla
There you
outside.
go.
I was like, I'm in the right place, man. This is it.
I don't know how somehow the first podcast that I've ever done, we somehow started talking about Tesla. I think it's my fault.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Cool. So for somebody out there that's listening to this, that's maybe newer to the game.
Okay.
Right? They're newer to real estate. They're just getting into it, or they're even thinking about getting into real estate and starting to sell.
Yeah.
What's something that you would tell them? It doesn't have to be the most important thing, but what's something that's super important that they should keep in mind going into it that you think?
I think the beautiful thing about this business is that there are so many different ways to do it well. It doesn't mean that it's easy, right? So there's a stat out there that's 87% of real estate agents fail in the first 5 years. Which is staggering, right? Because the barrier of entry is relatively low, right? You don't have to have a college degree to get in. You got to take some classes and pass a test, and then you get your license.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you can go sell real estate now. It means you can, but it doesn't mean you're going to be good at it, right? But what that also tells me is that if you can last for 5 years, you're already in the top 13% of the people that you came in with.
Yeah.
For me, there's so many different ways to be good that what I would say to anybody who's thinking about starting is find somebody who's running a business the way that you would want to do it and just replicate it. Just emulate them. I was actually going through a questionnaire for another podcast. They were asking me what I would call my episode if I was going to be on it. And I was saying, there's nothing new under the sun. That would be what I would call my episode. And the reason for that is while I had these really great mentors in Kansas City, I started and then I was in it for about a year and then COVID hit. I couldn't go into the office, which was in their house, and they're older, so I worked from home. I learned so much of what I do from podcasts, from books, from audiobooks, from asking questions. And there's so much information out there that for someone who's new or someone who's been around and is struggling, there's really no excuse because the information's out there and it's for free. Yeah. You just have to look for it. You have to have a little bit of discipline. You've got to go look for it, and then you've got to put it into practice. But if you can do that, the income is essentially limitless. And more important than that, the freedom is limitless. Yeah. Your why can be at the forefront of what you're doing, and you can literally change your life and the life of your family. And my wife and I are blessed enough to be able to say that we're at the beginning stages of that now, and we can see the fruit of it already. Just this week, we went and visited family in Charlotte. We just decided to go. We left on Tuesday. We came back yesterday, and we could. Yeah. And I could work from Charlotte. I could make phone calls, and I could be on my computer, but we were able to have the freedom and flexibility to be able to do that, and it's such a blessing. Yeah. It's such a blessing.
Yeah, praise God. That's great. It really does give you so much freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If you remember that that's your why and you put that in the forefront, because you can also come into this business and you can work 100 hours a week and you can never see your family and you can let it take over. Yeah. But there's so many ways to do it well, and there's so many people that have come before us that have done it so well that to me there's no excuse. If someone else has done it, then I can do it too. And I think, I'm bringing a lot of quotes that I don't remember who said them, so I feel really bad about that. Happens to me all the time. But so I think it was in the book, maybe The One Thing by Gary Keller. This may have been in that book. If not, that's a fantastic book, by the way. But he had basically had someone tell him when he was in college, you're really smart, but other people have done it first. So instead of starting from the ground up, why don't you stand on the shoulders of giants? Yeah. And there's so many giants just in Atlanta, right? There's killers in Atlanta right now. Just go be around them Ask them questions. Take them out to lunch. Pay them as a consultant. Go listen to podcasts like this one. Not that I have a lot of wisdom to offer, but some others. I think the information is out there, and if you just seek it, you will find it. I think the biggest thing for me that I would want to share with someone, and I did this with my brother-in-law. He's actually a really great example. So my brother-in-law, this is my wife's sister's husband. He was also one of my roommates in college. So we lived together and we married sisters.
Wow.
And he's an incredible example of someone who can come into this business and crush it. He was working in the healthcare field. He was managing basically like an assisted living facility. And he did that, healthcare administration. He did that for years. He was working in that basically while we were living together. He graduated a little before I left college. I didn't graduate, but I left. And he was doing incredibly well, but he was working all the time, and he was not happy. And we'd go to visit them, and I had gotten my real estate license, and I was telling them about it and the potential of it, of being able to essentially buy back your time, because you're a business owner. You can structure it how you want to structure it, and as long as you're supporting your why, you can be successful. Because I mean, again, success is different depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
My success is being able to go to the park on a Tuesday with my kids, right?
Wow.
And that's what he wanted. And he had a situation where he was actually fired from his job. They call the W-2 income the golden handcuffs, right? Because they pay you. They say a salary is the drug that they give you to forget your dreams. And when he got fired, he lost it. And I said, dude, you should go get your real estate license. He'd already been passionate about real estate investing, and he had owned a rental. And I was like, you would succeed at this because you're a grinder. You're a hustler. You're going to give it 110% every day. And he did it. And his first year was last year. I think he sold 30-something homes.
No way.
He was Rookie of the Year at his office. He's at a Keller Williams office out in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Wow.
And he crushed it. And he's crushing it again this year. But most importantly, he's able to spend intentional time with his family. He has 3 kids and a 4th on the way.
Yeah.
And he gets to have one-on-one time with all of his kids every month. He gets to spend more time at home because he's able to essentially buy back his time.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I would want to make sure to communicate with anybody is he and I do it very differently, right? I'm much more of a relationship person. I'm probably a little more laid back. He is a much harder worker, a much more of a grinder than I am. But both of us are successful by our own metrics, by our own definition of success. I think anybody can do it if they're willing to do it and if they're willing to learn.
Yeah.
Most people are scared of not having, you eat what you kill, right? Like you're on a commission-based income where if you don't sell, you don't make any money.
Yeah.
But you can also earn unlimited income.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I would much rather, like the risk reward there, for me, it's such an easy decision.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For me, I would much rather have that opportunity than be afraid of the risk. And I know everybody's got a different level of risk tolerance, but I've seen it done well, which means I know that I can do it if I learn from the people that have done it before me. And so I think that's my one thing that I would want to share today, and that I would want to tell anybody that asks me about getting into real estate is it can be the most rewarding thing in the world if you go learn from somebody who's done it before and then put that into practice. You will succeed as long as you persevere.
Jason, it was great having you on the
Oh,
podcast.
man, thank you. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
That was a great ending. Great way to end it.
Oh,
Strong
man.
ending. Where can people find you?
Honestly, the best place to connect with me is probably Instagram. It's at Jason Cannon Jones. Cannon's my middle name.
Such a cool name.
Cannon. So 3 N's. But yeah, at Jason Cannon Jones. And I'm by no means an expert, but if anybody wants to reach out to me, shoot me a DM. I'd love to chat about real estate, about entrepreneurship. I think accountability is super important. So if there's anything that I could do to help or to be of service, I'd love to do it.
Awesome. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you again to Visually Sold for sponsoring this podcast.
Come on. Let's go.
And we'll see you on the next one.